Welcome to the US 29 Corridor Study presentation. This video will provide background on the US 29 Corridor Study in Anderson County between I-85 and US 178-76, also known as East River Street. This study is being conducted by the Appalachian Council of Governments in partnership with the South Carolina Department of Transportation, the Anderson-Clemson Area Transportation Study, Anderson County, and City of Anderson. A map of the study area can be seen here. This video will summarize the purpose of the corridor study, outline the existing challenges and opportunities, discuss the corridor vision and recommended improvements along the corridor, and explain the next steps needed to get from planning study to implementation. Please visit the project website at www.us29study.com to learn more about the project. A corridor study focuses attention on a single corridor in the transportation network in order to resolve issues dealing with all or a portion of that corridor and identifies recommendations to improve conditions along the corridor. This is the initial step of planning for corridor improvements. Once a corridor study is completed, there are still many steps to be undertaken before the construction begins, including getting the project placed into the Regional Long-Range Transportation Plan, identifying funding, and designing the project. These additional steps are shown in the project lifecycle graphic shown here. Improvements recommended for a corridor study often still require additional refinement during the later stages of the project development. In the spring of 2024, input from the community was gathered through an online survey that collected 118 responses and from a public open house that was held on March 14th. This community input guided the project steering committee in establishing a vision for the US 29 corridor. The vision states that the US 29 corridor should provide additional capacity to accommodate the future growth of the area, balance the needs of freight traffic and passenger vehicles, and retain important truck access between the City of Anderson and I-85. Improve safety by providing access control measures, incorporating turn lanes, and minimizing full movement unsignalized intersections. Be contextually appropriate to the character of the surrounding community. Accommodate bicycles and pedestrians through sidewalks and multi-use paths in areas that are appropriate. And focus land uses into mixed-use nodes at major intersections, with the remainder of the corridor taking on a more rural development pattern with preserved rural areas. This map describes the different roadway cross-sections and neighborhood character experienced along the US 29 corridor. The various roadway cross-sections transition between 4 lanes with a median and 2 lanes at several points along the entire corridor. Neighborhood character is mainly rural, with areas of commercial and residential. Crash data for the US 29 corridor was assessed over a 5-year period. During that time, 936 crashes were reported, with rear-end crashes accounting for 44% of those crashes. The crash heat map shows the areas that experienced the most crashes within the last 5 years, with the yellow areas indicating the most crashes, followed by the red areas, and then the blue areas which show the lowest number of crashes. This graphic identifies 5 recent projects that the South Carolina Department of Transportation is either in the process of undertaking or has completed. These include ramp and bridge construction at US 29 and Cherokee Road, and the installation of a new roundabout at US 29 and Welcome Road, both of which are completed. Also included are upcoming improvements to the intersections of US 29 and Bowland Road and US 29 and Old Williamson Road, which will enhance the safety in that area. Based on input from the community and steering committee, it was determined that US 29 corridor recommendations should be outlined in the 3 phases as follows. Phase 1 involves short-term improvements, focusing on enhancing safety, improving intersections, and expanding access control along US 29. Phase 2 includes midterm improvements focused on land use policy, directing mixed-use development to key intersections, securing right-of-way, and starting a pedestrian and bicycle network. Phase 3 will make long-term improvements by widening US 29 to 4 lanes, adding a median and improving access and roadway features. Short-term improvements are focused on improving the operations and safety of the intersections that have the greatest safety concerns and are anticipated to experience the greatest operational impacts due to future growth. Widening the entire US 29 corridor to 4 lanes with a median results in a number of impacts to property and environmentally sensitive areas and is much more costly, thus is a much longer-term approach. However, much improvement to traffic flow and safety can be realized through these shorter-term intersection improvements. In total, 9 intersections are recommended for improvements as part of this US 29 corridor study, as shown on this graphic. More specific information on these short-term recommendations can be found on the project website. Building on the short-term intersection improvements explained previously, the long-term focus is on widening the northern section between Cherokee Road and Esley Highway. These improvements will ultimately provide a continuous 4-lane median-divided roadway between I-85 and Cherokee Road. The traffic model developed for this study shows this area becoming congested sooner than the remainder of the corridor. Much further down the road, widening the entire corridor to 4 lanes can be revisited. Regardless, corridor widening should be context appropriate and reflect the preferred cross-sections shown here, with a more rural suburban type of roadway for the majority of the northern section, and a more urban type of roadway with sidewalks and multi-use trails for the southern portion closer to the city of Anderson. There are several factors that influence how the transportation network operates, such as land use planning and policy. As part of the US 29 corridor study, several recommendations are offered to update the local land use codes and comprehensive plans to focus on preserving future right-of-way for roadway improvements, managing access, increasing opportunities for walking, and focusing commercial and mixed-use development near major intersections, while retaining the rural character of the majority of the corridor to avoid sprawling development from occurring. Input received from the community will be incorporated into the final US 29 Corridor Study Plan report. This plan will be used to guide the next steps for the corridor, including prioritizing improvements to be included in the region's long-range transportation plan for future funding requests. Thank you for your interest in the US 29 Corridor Study. Remember to check the project website for updates and additional material.